God is good. And all the time.
God is good.
I just have to say, I saw the best thing I have seen all week long, standing over by the sausage biscuits, and Graham is facing me, and Lexi walks through the door, and he, of course, you know, what is he, 3 years old now? Yeah. Almost 3?
Yeah.
So, like May, he'll be 3, right? And he just... That was the absolute cutest thing I have seen all week, you know. He just like... Lexi. But didn't really quite say her name right, but he's like, Lexi. Very cute. This weekend, and I haven't been to the theater, but if any of you go to see it, let me know. The most recent movie in the Left Behind series has been released. Now, it's been 9 years. It's been so long. Nicolas Cage was the star in the last one back in 2014. But The Rise of the Antichrist has been released. I saw the trailers for it, and it looks like it's probably good entertainment. I've read a lot of the Left Behind series books. Timothy LaHaye, Jerry Jenkins. I'm missing the signal, but okay. You're hoping he gets left behind?
Sammy's looking for the baby.
Oh, that's the baby. We have a baby here, so let's just all hold the baby. I'll just leave my sermon notes online. Let's just take turns with the baby. Although that's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen. Since we had all sons, I can say that, right? She is beautiful. Just want to gobble her up. I believe that the movie will probably be very entertaining, but I think it's poor theology that's behind it. And the next couple of chapters that we go over in Revelation, we're in chapter 18 today, and we're getting very close to the conclusion of the book. I think we've been at this about a year now, it feels like. I don't know. Maybe it might feel like 10 years to you all. I don't know. But we're going to come out with a different perspective and a different point of view than what popular culture has to say. So we're getting closer to the conclusion of the series, and what we're going to see today, so if you just want to hear like a thumbnail and then tune me out, go over your grocery list, balance your checkbook, play Wordle or whatever it is on your phone, get caught up in your... All right, here's what we're going to see. Rome, the results of a self-centered narcissism, and what are the consequences when you live for yourself instead of God? Now, it's going to be really easy to get confused when we look through chapter 18 at the lifestyle of the Romans and say that's the sin. The way that they're living with the means that they have, that's the problem. So you're going to have to be really careful as we go through the text. See, there's a clear sense from John of just complete depravity, complete debauchery, just really immoral, corrupt people. And the temptation for us is to say, well, it's because of all that Rome had to offer. After this, John says, I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory. Now, this is the only time in the book of Revelation when the word glory is associated with some other being other than God or Jesus. So this is a very powerful angel. In fact, he's so powerful and so important, what happens? The whole earth is made bright with his glory. And he called out with a mighty voice. Again, this word mighty is only attached with Jesus and with God. We hardly ever see this adjective given to someone else. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. Now remember, John's already told us Babylon is Rome. She's become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast, for all nations, right, the whole known world around the Mediterranean, have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. That must be the problem, right? They live in the riches, right? They're okay, right? They're just, that must be the problem. Coincidentally, as Rome falls, it goes from being the world's superpower to what? This word haunt in the Greek, strangely, I don't know why our English translations change so much. The word is prison. So instead of it being a place that demons choose to dwell, a haunt, a hangout, a refuge, it's a prison where they're trapped. It's a prison for unclean spirits. It's a prison for unclean, unclean, unclean. So it's gone from being a place where people want to go to now being this evil prison. So the angel comes down and he says, it's fallen and it's gone and it's changed and it's not what you think it is. Why? Because the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. Then I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. For her sins are heaped as high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. So we've got an angel that says, hey, it's fallen. We've got another voice that says, come out. Why are the Christians told to flee? It's not to avoid the catastrophe of Rome, the overthrow of Rome, the problems of Rome. They're told to flee lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues. It's a warning of proximity. 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived, bad company corrupts good character. Gunner, you're going to be like the boys you hang around with at school. Talis, you'll be like the guys you hang out with at your office. Kellen, you're going to be like the people on the police department you hang out with. Maybe the ones in the back of the car, maybe not, right? No. You're going to be like the people you hang around with. So you have to be selective on who you invest your life in. And the mighty voice is saying, come out of there, lest you share in the sins. It's a corrupting influence. Get out of there while you can. They're not told to flee the destruction. They're told to flee the depravity. And that, right there, is a timeless truth. You will always be like the people you surround yourself with. You'll not influence them half as much as the group will influence you. So, they're told to flee, and as she glorified herself, Rome, and lived in luxury, so give her a measure of torment and of mourning, since in her heart, she says, I sit as a queen, I am no widow, and mourning I shall never see. For this reason, her plagues will come in a single day, death and mourning and famine, and she'll be burned up with fire, for mighty is the Lord God who has judged her. What are we seeing here? What is John highlighting? He's highlighting what Rome's primary sin was. And it is Rome's self-centered pride. The reason Rome is being judged is her self-centered pride. I'll never have problems. I'll always be powerful. I'll always have luxury. I'll always have this. And it's all me. Look what I done. Look what I created. And it's self-centered pride. And John is clearly articulating this is the root of Rome's sin. I want you to notice, because most of us in our tradition, biblically, our church's background that most of us come from, we don't give a lot of attention to angels. We don't. We don't hardly talk about it. I don't know of many evangelical mainline Christians that spend a lot of time talking about angels. Have you noticed over and over and over again the involvement and the role angels have played throughout the book of Revelation? In chapter 18, verse 1, after this I saw another angel coming down from heaven. Notice what this angel has. Great authority and glory. This angel is able to tell and to command and to announce and to be involved, right? Then in verse 4, I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues." So now this angel is instructing, here's what you need to do. You need to come out of Rome. Get away from it. And then when we get to verse 21, a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea. Commentaries say that there's basically two millstones that John's audience would have been familiar with. A small one, like you think like a mortar and a pedestal. But this one, they say, is the big one that had to be turned by oxen or by donkey. So it's humongous. Mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, threw it into the sea, saying, "So will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence and be found no more." Announcing, informing, instructing. And I think it's worthwhile for us as believers to stop and notice God has another group of supernatural beings that are not human. They're not made with man and woman children bearing. They've existed before us, and they are involved in partnering in the work that God does between heaven and earth. Can we see them? Probably not. The book of Hebrews says sometimes you've entertained angels unknowingly, so they can obviously take on human form. They can obviously interact with people, but it's there, it's real, and it is part of biblical Christianity. So, John is highlighting the debauchery, the unrestrained exploitation, the way that Rome is taking over the world and pridefully just building up an incessant amount of narcissism, self-focused. What is the problem? It is greed versus glorifying God. Rome doesn't look at her gifts. She doesn't look at her talents. She doesn't look at her accomplishments and say, you know what? I didn't really do this on my own. There's a God in heaven that helped me. Time and again in Revelation you'll see Rome is taking all of the credit and all of the material blessings and becoming greedy instead of glorifying God. Verse 3, all the nations have drunk the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. The kings of the earth committed immorality with her. The merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. I promise you that the poorest person in Kingsport has a lot more amenities than the richest person in Rome had. Everybody, including homeless people, have cell phones. All of us, unless you have to call Steve Huff, better, faster, cleaner, can flush our toilets, right? We have running water. We have electricity. We have vehicles. We have so many things that the ancient world could never have conceptualized. So what does that say about us? Are we in danger? Are we in danger because we have a car that's not 35 years old? If you have a car that's 20 years old or younger, and you got a set of wheels, are you living a luxurious life that is endangering your life? Romans chapter 1, verse 16, probably a verse most of us are familiar with, maybe have memorized. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel. It is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. What does it have to do with chapter 18, verse 3? What's the one word, one big word in there, that they both have in common? Power. They've grown rich from the power of her luxurious living. The luxurious living isn't the issue so much as the power. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, the good news, the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus. It is the power. That word dunamis. It's where we get the word dynamite from. Power. What is it and how do you use it? Influence, domination, control, leverage, the ability to move things forward. Rome had amazing power and chose to use it for herself, chose to exploit the rest of the world. The seduction of the Roman Empire was that materialism could replace God. It wasn't having material goods. It was trusting in the providence of Rome to provide and not acknowledging God. Anytime you see an idea with an ISM at the end, that's an ism, right? Materialism. What are some other isms? I'm drawing a blank right now because I'm stupidly tired right now. Capitalism, right? Socialism, communism, right? Ism, it's an ideology. Thank you, Talis. It's a way of thinking about things. And they thought they deserved it. They made it themselves, and it was all theirs. And that's where the power was for them. Instead of acknowledging God's providence, they trusted in their machinery over God above. What will the results be? How will God bring justice through that? The kings of the earth committed sexual immorality and lived in luxury with her. They will weep and wail over her when they see the smoke of her burning. They'll stand far off in fear of her torment and say, Alas, alas, you great city, you mighty city Babylon, in a single hour your judgment has come. The city's burning to the ground. It's being destroyed. They're standing back, right? Fair weather fans. We enjoyed all we could get from you, but now that you're paying the price, we're going to back off. The merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her since no one buys their cargo anymore. Cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine. So in Rome, they got their gold from Spain. They had so much gold, the politicians, the emperors, the elite, that gold was no longer as valuable as silver. Silver became the biggest fad. Everyone's got gold. I want something different. So then they start going after silver. So now you see the tradesmen, the sailors, all of these guys who are bound to service by Rome so they can continue their life to perpetuate this Roman illusion, to continue to receive the rewards of being part of the Roman machine. All of a sudden they see, it's breaking down. You remember back in chapter 2, Revelation chapter 2, talked about Thyatira. Okay. No one gets communion until you pass this quiz. I know, it was like a year ago. But you remember, we talked about they all had trade guilds in that town. So there were bronze workers, wool workers, metal workers, right? And each of these guilds had their own god that they worshipped. The god of silversmithing, the god of dyeing wool and all that. And to live in that town and to participate economically, you had to go to their annual festivals and you had to worship those gods. You remember? You may not remember that, but that was part of the temptation and persecution that they faced. Now you see these same type of tradesmen having a role of reversal. So the Christians are being persecuted and punished, and it's made uneasy for them because of their lack of participation in their worshiping of their gods. Now it's a role reversal for them, and now they are the ones. They are the ones who are put in a pinch, in a bad situation. Now remember, Roman Empire, the first true international world market system, right? So like I said, they got their gold out of Spain. The stones that he talks about, they brought in from India. The pearls came from the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, right? They're extracting this from all around. The silk that he talks about came from China, right? So they're bringing stuff in everywhere. Now, something that I found interesting, I looked a little deeper. In verse 12, cargo of gold, silver, jewels, pearl, the fine linen, purple cloth, silk, and scarlet cloth. Ladies, how many shoes do you have in your closet? Don't answer that. What's your most expensive outfit? The outfit that's being described here was 7,000 denarii. A denarii was a day's wage. That's $280,000 in today's currency. And the Roman elite would, Cass is thinking, where's my time machine? I see your eyes going, oh. It's almost the same look Graham had when he saw Lexi. I rebuked the spirit of Jezebel. $280,000 for your cocktail dress, for your evening attire. It gets even crazier. I don't know, how do you get much crazier than $280,000 for an outfit? Cicero and I think Josephus talk about the next part. So all kinds of articles of ivory, kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble. This costly wood came from North Africa. You're not going to believe this. From Cicero's perspective, $2.5 million for the dining room table that the Roman elite would have with this wood. So it would have legs that were wrapped in silver, but this North African wood. Some of the contemporaries of John's time put it into modern day equivalent currency of $5 million for the dining room table. Can you imagine that? And then one day it gets passed down to your kids, and then your grandkids, it's a workbench out in the garage. I mean, come on. This is what they're having. This is how they saw the resources that they had. And again, John is not saying that the problem with Rome is that they have it. John is saying they're not good stewards. They are not good stewards of their wealth. Instead of living, listen to me, instead of living from their wealth, they're living for the wealth and the self-centered pride to say, we are Roman. We could spend $280,000 on a dress and $5 million on a table because we're so, no. See, John is saying it was a matter of the heart. Living not from their wealth, but for their wealth. So all the gold, jewels, pearls, and all this, it's just been, the city's been laid to waste. And the shipmasters and the seamen and the sailors, everyone who trades on the sea, they're crying out, what city was like the great city? And they throw dust on their head and they're weeping and they're crying because the city is fallen down. In the loud voice, rejoice over her, O heaven and you saints and apostles and prophets, for God has given judgment for you against her. Let's wrap up chapter 18, because next week, chapter 19 is gonna be amazing. Then I saw a mighty angel, took up a stone like a great millstone, threw it in the sea. So will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence, be found no more. The sound of harpists and musicians and flute players and trumpeters will be heard in you no more. And any craftsman of any craft will not be found in you anymore. The sound of the mill will not be heard in you. The light of the lamp will shine in you no more. It's getting pretty dark. It's bleak. It's falling apart. The voice of the bridegroom, so everyday activities will be heard in you no more. Your merchants were great ones of the earth. All the nations were deceived by your sorcery, and in her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints and all who have been slain on the earth. What's John saying? Rome's tyrannical economics, their massive narcissism, their sorcery, their murder of believers, of the saints, all have consequences. And the warning is that people will pay the highest price for neglecting God in their lives and being consumed by the greed, the selfishness, the arrogance, the pride, the corruption. And therefore, from chapter 18, a clear conclusion is, without God at the center, the gravy train derails every time.